Hello, I'm Deborah Henson-Conant, and I'm here to talk about what I'm going to be talking about for the next 10 weeks, which is all about the strings of passion. And the strings of passion is the 7 principles that take us from creative impulse to creative expression. Let me just turn this up just a teeny tiny bit. Okay. I hope it's not too loud. And if it is, I can see most of you in the chat, I think, even though I'm broadcasting in several different places. This is something that I love to talk about because it's something that I love to think about. All my life, I've loved to think about music and love to think about how does music work and how can we express ourselves with it without having to worry about all, learning this, and learning all these technical things before we can actually express ourselves. And I know that it is possible to express ourselves in a fluent, simple, essential way because I know that I did that when I was a little kid, before I knew anything about the notes or how music works, or I just knew that music was a thing you can play with. And that's what I love to teach. And I love to teach it because I love to learn it. I love what happens when I try to break it down for other people to learn it. And so a few years ago, someone came to me and they said, I'd like you to break down the process of creative impulse to creative expression. Can you break it down so anybody could engage with it? And I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. But it took me a lot longer than I thought. It probably took me about 7 or 8 years. And finally, I was able to break it down. And I broke it down into 7 principles. And I'm going to talk about those right now because I love thinking and talking about them. And because I teach them in Hip Harp Academy. And Hip Harp Academy, which is my school, enrollment is open now. And the very first class of 2022 is called Strings of Passion. And that's what it's about. It's about those 7 principles that take you from creative impulse to creative expression. And what happens when you're able to do that is that you then start creating something that is called creative resonance, which is a relationship between yourself, your instrument, music, and what you're doing that creates this incredible resonance. It would be great if we're like, just create that resonance. But in fact, you can break that down. So what I want to do right now is break that down into those 7 principles. And if you're watching this and you are a harp player and you ever get stuck or you don't feel like you can express yourself, you feel like there's something in you, but you can't necessarily express it, or you feel like you're not fluent with the instrument, or you feel like you got to learn more before you can start expressing yourself, this class is for you. And this is for anyone in any field, but the class is for harpists, but what I'm about to say is for anybody. These 7 principles are in everything. I use them all the time. But if you're a harpist, go to hipharp.com. That's hip as in cool, harp as in the instrument. And look for the class so that you can register and you can be part of this, because I'm teaching this in the next 10 weeks and it's part of a whole year-long program. So what is this? What are the strings of passion? What is creative resonance? And how do you break it down? Why do you break it down? You break it down so that you can get to the essence of it. So that instead of feeling like music is a set of notes that you have to learn and that you can't express yourself until you can actually connect your digits to those notes and express them fluently. If you can break down music to its essence, you can connect with it. It can become your language. first string in the strings of passion is the string of impulse. That desire to do, to touch, to be, to play. And if you can imagine or remember the first time that you saw the instrument that you love to play, or the first time you saw something that you love to play with or that you love to do, that feeling, I want to, let me. If you saw somebody else doing it and everything in your body was just like, let me do it. That is impulse, that beautiful impulse of like, not, can I do it? Am I good enough? It's let me. I want to touch that. I want to engage that. I want to be part of that. I want that to be part of me. That is impulse. I can remember many times when this has happened to me in different ways. Certainly the first time I saw a ukulele, I was like, I want to touch that. I see what you're doing, but I want to touch that. The first time I heard Claude Debussy playing his orchestral music, I was like, that is my world. I want to do that. Sometimes you can do it in a second. I was able to reach out and touch that ukulele. Sometimes it takes many years. It took many, many decades before I could write music for symphony orchestra and I could stand in the middle of it and have that experience that I am doing this. It doesn't matter whether it takes 5 minutes or it takes 25 years or 30 or 40 or 50. It doesn't matter. That reaching, that impulse, that is the first string in the strings of passion. And the reason that I call them strings is because I play the harp and I know what happens when you have 7 strings and you have them in octaves. You can create a world with that. And so there are 7 strings of passion that we can respond to as well, just like the harp responds to us. So the first string is the string of impulse. The second string is the string of structure. Structure is the foundation of creative freedom, like a scaffold that you can build something on, or like an internal flexible structure, like a skeleton that you can build a life on. That is structure, and it is the foundation of creative freedom. And I learned about this when I was 7. I had a new stepfather. I just looped that on my looper. I had a new stepfather. And he was a child psychologist. And I don't know if that had to do with this or not, but one night in our first winter together as a family, he sat me down at the kitchen table and he handed me our sugar bowl and a spoon and a cup of warm water and a string and a pencil. And he told me to take the spoon and spoon water into that glass of warm water and stir it up. And I did. And it disappeared. And then he had me put more sugar in and I stirred it up and it disappeared. And he was like, put more in. I put more in and I stirred and stirred and stirred until the water was completely saturated with this sugar. And you could see it swirling all around. And so then he gave me the pencil and he tied the string onto the pencil. He put the pencil on top of the glass and the string hung down into the glass of water. And he said, okay, we're going to leave that there. We go to bed. So we go to bed, and in the morning, I come out, and there in that glass of water was a string covered with crystals of sugar. And this, as you can imagine, That's a little loud. And for me as a 7-year-old, that was completely magical. And I said to him, how did this happen? And he said, well, sugar will always become crystals. That's what it does. Sugar will crystallize. It will become crystals. That's natural, that's normal. But when you put a string into the sugar water, the crystals will form around that string. And he said, there are many strings in the sugar water of life. And you need to look for those strings. That's the structure that these crystals will create around. And so I learned. Now, did he say all that? I don't even know. I don't remember. I remember the magic and what I observed and what I started looking for in life. Where is the string in the sugar water? Because that is the structure. There's always a structure that will support the creativity. Otherwise, that creativity, the creation of the sugar crystals, it's going to just fall down to the bottom of the glass. But when that string is there, the crystals grow on the string. And that is the power of structure. That it can put all that, it can make a place for the creativity to come together. And so the first principle in the strings of passion is impulse. And the second string is the string of structure. And the third string is the string of character. So when I was little, I played music. I made up music. I would sit at the piano. I would make up, didn't know how to I didn't know what notes were. I just knew that this was a toy. This was another toy. And this toy happened to make noise. And not only did it make noise, but it made sounds that evoked. So I would write stories. And the stories always included the same elements because those were the things I could play. I could play rain. I could play thunder. I could play someone going down somewhere. I could play someone coming up. I could play someone going slow and then faster. So there were things that I knew how to play. And so I made stories out of those things. I made stories where it was a light rain and there was a little princess named Deborah who would go down, 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 down into a dark, I don't know, her ball went down into a dark place and she went down after it and she went back up and she went down and back up and back down. And when she got down there was thunder started to happen. And then there was a big monster and she ran back up and it ran after her and she made it go. It wasn't Beethoven, I'll tell you that. And it wasn't Mozart. It was a little kid playing with the character of music without knowing anything about notes or harmony, but purely playing with character. The character of rain, the character of thunder, the character of loudness. And when I grew up and I started listening to real music, I realized that this is what composers were doing when they were using more sophisticated music. But when you see pianissimo or fortissimo in the music, it's not about loud. It's not just like, oh, well, go loud. Like, why? Why are you loud? Is it loud because thunder has happened? Is it loud because you're joyous? Is it loud because you're trying to get someone's attention? Why is it soft? Is it soft because you're whispering? Is it soft because you're moved, because you're in awe? They're going to write, pianissimo or piano and forte, but it's truly about character and the story that you're telling. So as we add if we just play the notes, we don't get that character. But what I observed as an adult, looking back at myself as a child, is with those three things: an impulse to touch, a structure, which was a story, and the idea of creating character, I was able to enjoy and be fluent in the expression of music or a musical story with absolutely no technical experience or understanding of music as we understand it. And so those first three strings, impulse, structure, and character, anyone can do that. Whether you understand how to play an instrument or not, you can do it. You can do it with a stick and a drum. And those are the first three strings in the strings of passion. And Marcella is saying, to live one day inside your head, I would learn so much of a lifetime of knowledge. You make me think of things I never think of with the harp. Really, it is like one of my master classes in college. Well, Marcella, that is why I have an academy, is because, and what's wonderful is that sorry, not only do we get to be inside my head in the academy, but we get to see it with a whole bunch of other people. And it's incredible to share these ideas. And I love being able to share these ideas because to me, this is music. And for years when people are like, let's talk about music, they'll be like, oh, I saw so-and-so play in such and such a year and blah, 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 blah. And for me, that's not talking about music. That's talking about musicians or things that happened. But talking about music is looking at, why does it work? Why is it magical? How do I connect with it? And that is what I teach and learn and explore and discover with harpists from around the world of many different technical levels in Hip Harp Academy. And one of the reasons that I love that all the harpists there are of different technical levels, and they've come to the harp at different times of their life, is that they all have a different experience of it. Like somebody who comes to the harp at 65 is going to have a different experience than someone who comes at 14 or at 12. And it's not necessarily a better experience. Sometimes when you come late to the harp, you're more open-minded. Sometimes when you've been playing your whole life and you've kind of been stuck in this one sort of trajectory, you can get stuck. And that is why we can get stuck at any point. We can get stuck feeling like, I don't have the technical ability. How do I do this with my own technical ability? Or we can get stuck in, I've got all this technical ability. I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know how to stop I don't know how to stop having the notes in my head. We can get stuck in any of those places. And the beauty and the power and the reason that I'm breaking this down is so we get unstuck. And I get stuck too. That's another reason that I break it down. So let's go through the rest of them. There's impulse, to do, to be, to touch. There's structure, the string in the sugar water that gives us, that supports creative expression. And there's character, which brings it alive. If you think about the story of Frankenstein, which I really, really love, it's a powerful, deep story. When you go back to the original, there was that moment of electricity that brings this monster who was actually this wonderful, wonderful being who happened to look weird, but this brings this wonderful being from just a collection of things to life. And that is what character is in music. So those are the first strings of passion. And the fourth string is the string of roles. Because once you have roles, you can play music with other people, or you can be more than one person yourself. And one of the things that's amazing about the harp is that the roles of music are so clear in that. And Marcella, I see that you have a question, and I'm going to go through this, and then I will definitely answer your questions. There are 3 roles in music. There's bass, there's accompaniment, and there's melody. They each have a character. Bass is a bass line down here. Accompaniment is usually a bunch of notes together, chords, or a sense of atmosphere. And melody is again a line. I like to think of this as if you were running over hills in a beautiful day and you had a kite. Your feet would be the bass line. The kite would be the melody up in the sky, and the atmosphere, the clouds, or the rain, or the smell of the breeze, that is the accompaniment. And we have that in the harp. You can see it. Down here is the bass. Here in the middle is accompaniment. Up here is melody. And sometimes people say, well, what about rhythm? Rhythm is in everything. It's not a separate role. It's something that connects us to the heartbeat of what we're doing. And it connects us to a collective heartbeat when we're playing together. So there's rhythm in everything, but there's the bass, the accompaniment, and the melody. And you can hear that bass, accompaniment, and melody. And one of the amazing things about the harp is you only have 2 hands, and you have to figure out how to play the bass and the accompaniment and the melody all at the same time, or seemingly at the same time. So that's one of the challenges that I find so beautiful about the instrument. Or you can play accompaniment and play bass and accompaniment, and you can sing the melody. And in that way, you are playing with your left hand, right hand, and your voice, and you're connected to this instrument. That's like a prosthetic. It's like a creative prosthetic that becomes a greater part of your voice. It gives your fingers a voice. So these are the roles, the 3 roles of music. And one of the beautiful things about the roles is that you can play them all yourself, or you can share them. If you know the roles, you can share them with a friend. A friend can take the bass, another friend can take the accompaniment, you can take the melody, and you can play all together. And another really beautiful thing about the roles is that each has a character. The bass has this low, deep, sense of being at the bottom and holding the bottom. The accompaniment has a character of being open. And I mean, it just can be different, or it can create rhythm. There's all different kinds of accompaniment. And melody has a character of singing and being almost like a bird in the sky. There's another way that you can use a role to pull character into your life and into your music. And that is to take on the role of a character or an archetype. And whenever I do this, I love to take on the role of, I always take on the role of the goddess Diana, because she has a bow and an arrow. But I could be any of the gods or goddesses. I mean, they're always fun. Or I could be a groundhog, I don't know what a groundhog is like, but I could, anyway, the point is you can take on the character, and that is another way to engage in the music. By taking on the character of a goddess, your approach is going to be, the sound went off. Oh, this is exciting, because now I can find out where the problem is in my cables. Aha! Interesting. Okay. All right. So you've got impulse, you've got structure, you've got character. The 4th is roles, and the 5th string is the string of practice. I think any musician has heard the word practice. I think any person who's ever done yoga or meditation has heard the word practice. I think anyone who's ever been a doctor has heard the word practice. It can mean many different things. To musicians, we can get stuck in it and think that we have to practice something until until we can get it, until we're good enough to get it. But there's a whole other meaning of practice, which is to practice something with calmness, with connection, and let it get to you. So there are these two meanings of practice, and I'm sure there are more. And that doesn't mean that you have to calm down and be meditative or something. There's all kinds of practices. I had a practice when I was learning classical music I had a practice that I would use my metronome. I had a practice that I would use a timer for 20 minutes. So I always practiced at least 20 minutes in 20-minute segments. And I had a practice that at the end of every practice session of, painstakingly breaking down the music, I would let go and I would play all the music without the notes. And that means that I would go through the piece playing as if, make believe that I could play it, and playing the entire character and the arc of the piece without worrying about even one of the notes. So for example, if I was playing Introduction and Allegro, I would be like, la, 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 like it's not even playable on the lever harp. I would play it like that. I would go through the whole thing, sometimes looking at the music to see the shape of it without actually playing those notes. And that meant that I owned the arc and the character of the music. And as I practiced it, I would grow into that. But I already lived in the piece. So that was a practice. I would let it get to me. So you have impulse, you have structure, you have character, you have roles, you have practice. So you have 1, 2, you have impulse, structure, character, roles, and then and practice, and then you have deconstruction. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm deconstructing that journey from impulse to creative expression. And when you deconstruct it, you get to the essence of it. And when you get to the essence of it, you can get away from all the details. So I just did a 5-day challenge for harpists where I was teaching something called vision music, where I was teaching essential, very simple, essential music. So I was teaching music where this might be the whole song. That was the whole melody. And the whole bass line was this. So it was very simple. There was just 2 different bass patterns. Well, it's not a pattern. It was one pattern in 2 different places. And this melody, that's all you had to remember. But then you could move that melody. You could move it all over the place. Or you could do it upside down. You could change the rhythm. You could change the shape a little bit. So that by remembering only one thing, by finding an essential, you could still play something that is endless and infinite and completely expressive, but without having to remember all those notes. And that's just one of the improv concepts that we use in the Academy. I teach 4 different improv concepts throughout the year. And one of them is this vision music. Another one is alternating patterns where you go safe and then adventure and then back to home and then adventure. And I'll talk about that another time because those are different structures. Right now I'm talking about deconstruction. So when we deconstruct, we take things down to their simplest so that we can connect with them, so that we can get away from all the details and we are speaking with our fingers, something that our fingers can speak. and we are engaging in what we can do instead of constantly contending with what we can't do. And at that moment, we come to the seventh string. And the seventh string is the string of liftoff. That is the moment when you come to music exactly as you are, and you play exactly what you can play, and you let go of all the other things that you think you should do, and you land there right in the middle, and you lift off, and you let yourself sing, and you just let that connection happen. And if you get lost, you go back to the impulse and the structure and the character and the roles and the practice and the deconstruction. And you go back as often as you need to so that you can reconnect and eventually over and over and over get to that liftoff. That moment when you are one with what you are doing. And what happens then is that you aren't just one, you are one that is two, because you become the voice of your harp, and the harp becomes the voice of you. And that is the moment of creative resonance, where you are playing the harp, which is playing you, which is playing the harp, and you are singing your song, which is singing you, which is singing the harp. And what happens then is that also happens inside of you. When you have that connection, that liftoff, everything that's out here also starts being reflected on the inside, and who you are on the inside starts being reflected on the outside. What you're doing on the outside starts building a reflection of itself on the inside. So you can imagine that there's something going between the harp and you, the harp and you, and that is the creative resonance that then starts to bring in others, and they start to feel that creative resonance. And that is our gift and our job and what we get to do as musicians. And it has nothing to do with technical ability. You can do it at any level of technical ability if you're able to make those connections. And that is part of what I teach at the Academy. In addition to those improv forms, all those structures that give you the freedom. Learning how to connect to beauty and power and expression at the level your fingers can do it opens up that connection. And what people often discover is that they're leaving whole parts of themselves out. That they're thinking, oh, I have to learn to play the harp this certain way. And they may be an incredible storyteller, or they may be a wonderful singer, or they may have some philosophy that's powerful, that they're thinking, well, I can't, that's that, and this is the harp. But no, the harp is a beautiful platform, a platform for who you truly are, to bring that into the world, so that you can give that gift that you have spent your whole life both hiding and growing, so you can give that gift to the world. And that is what we will be doing starting on January 24th in Hip Harp Academy. And I hope that if you play the harp, although we've had people who don't play the harp in this program as well, I hope that you will join me. structure, character, roles, practice, deconstruction, and liftoff. Thank you. I just love that I can now talk about this, that I've found the words, and that there's a community, the hip hop community, where we can talk about this and where we can explore it and discover it and expand it. So Marcella, you asked a wonderful question, and I want to answer your question, and I'm happy to answer any other questions. I can be here for another 5 or 10 minutes. Marcella asked, do you have any tips for memorization? It was always a struggle for me to recognize patterns and be able to spit it out. So yes, I do, Marcella. I do have tips for memorization, which is forget it. I can't memorize. And that's one of the reasons why I had to learn how to distill music down to its essence, because I just can't. It doesn't make any sense to me. I just can't remember it. I can understand how it works, and I can make something like, a song that I might have, something that somebody else has written, but I don't memorize. And that's one of the reasons that I developed so many improvisation forms, because I wanted to have an engagement with music, but I had zero ability to memorize, to remember how something was the last time. And that's one of the reasons that I really love the vision music, where what you memorize is something really small, and it doesn't matter. If you forget what you're supposed to play and you play something different, you're still playing something. And that we had a big discussion about that in the Harpists Who Dare Facebook, where we were saying, like, well, somebody said, well, I couldn't remember the notes. And I was like, and it doesn't matter, because if you don't remember the notes, you're playing something else. And if you like the sound of it and if you can go with it, fine. The structure of these things and the notes, in my mind, is to just get you started, so that then you get into where you can express yourself and you can feel comfortable being on the instrument. It's funny, I don't know why, just now I was thinking of skiing. I was thinking of, like, you just need to be on the slope. You need to be, there's not a perfect way to do it. I am not a skier. So I would be on, like, the baby slope, but I do know there's no perfect way to do it. The fun is, like, how do you get from the top to the bottom? How do you get from the top to the bottom, either not falling down or enjoying falling down? And I would say it's the same with music. Are there any other questions? I love questions, and I love questions because I don't always know the answer. And the questions take me deeper into discovery. That's why I love the Academy. And, let me just, so it's open for enrollment now, and it's going to close down soon. So if you're a harpist, check it out, Hip Harp Academy. Well, hipharpacademy.com, or you can just go to hipharp.com. That's hip as in cool, harp as in the instrument. And I'm just tell you how it works. So it's a year-long program, and each week it combines live and pre-recorded material. So, and you can do any of it. Some people come into the Academy and they just do the pre-recorded material. They never come to the live stuff. Some people come, do the live stuff. They never do the pre-recorded. Oh, and one important thing, if you're thinking of joining the Academy, join now, because we have 2 special members only events this coming weekend on the 22nd and the 23rd. And I don't even think they're advertised, but they're 2 live workshops at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is the time that we usually do workshops, because it works for people pretty much all over the world. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So there's a live portion of the Academy. Every Monday, we have a masterclass and a chat where I teach a new concept. And then we also have feedback on people's work, which is really powerful, because what happens is when you start seeing feedback on other people's work, you learn how to stop critiquing, and you learn how to start observing that every person who shares work for you to see is giving you the seeds of freedom and ideas. And so in the Academy, you learn to stop looking with criticism at your own work and at other people's work, and you learn to start observing the gifts that are being given, the gifts of perception, the gifts of opportunity. Meaning, every time, it doesn't matter if somebody may be doing something that's like I could never do that, but as you start to break it down, you're like, oh, well, I could do that. I mean, that person is going like a gazillion notes. I can't do that. But I see that there's a value and a power in moving up the harp, and I can do it like this. I can do it in my own way, and I can get the beauty of it. So part of the power of the feedback is breaking down music. It's all about breaking it down. It's all about breaking it down to its essence, getting out of the criticism, which is easier said than done, getting out of the self-criticism, getting out of the criticism of others, getting out of comparing and despairing, and really being able to have a personal relationship with music that feels great, in which you are able to express yourself. Marcella is saying, do I have a favorite key? Well, C is great because it's universal and everybody knows it. So a lot of stuff that we do in the Academy, we have the harp in the key of C, although we're playing in a lot of different modes. Because again, I try to get out of the complexity of the lever and blah, 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 blah. I mean, we do learn modulation. We do a lot of those things. But for freedom and fluency, I like to keep the harp as simple as possible until we have absolute fluency with it. Then we can start getting more complicated with levers and blah, 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 blah. And of course, I love things where you like play the levers where you have fun with the levers like that. But I love different keys for different reasons. I mean, I love more sharp keys because they have that brightness. I like the flatter keys because they have that warmth. I love all of them. Do you have a favorite key, and why? And any other questions? I'm only here for another about 2 or 3 minutes. And then other than that, just make sure that you know about the Academy, that you know that it's starting on Monday, the 24th. And right now it's already started and we're already in the warm-up week. So if you're a harpist, jump in now because you get to do all the warm-ups, and then you also get to come to the 2 members-only events on Saturday and Sunday. And if you have any questions, like I can't find this, or what, just go to Hip. See, how can you? Yeah, go to Hip. I'm trying to figure out how you could. Yeah, go to my contact page at hipharp.com, and you can always just send a message from there. That's the easiest thing to do. Hipharp.com. That's hip as in cool. Harp as in the instrument. You can just send a question. Ask me anything because I love to talk about this. All right, I need to go because I have I'm meeting a friend in about 6 minutes, and I want to make sure that I'm there. Thank you so much for listening tonight. Thank you for thinking about, what I've shared with you. And for anybody who is a harpist and is not yet in the Academy, make sure that you check it out and that you ask if you have questions about it. And if you are in the Academy already, make sure you know about the special members only events this weekend. What we're doing is I'm doing 2 really powerful workshops that will set you up for the strings of passion, which we're going to be using. And those 2 workshops, one is called Clarify Your Vision. And it's one where we go in and start to see what your vision is. Now, a lot of people are like, well, I don't have a vision. And that's what this is for. And some people are like, well, I already have a vision. And this is to clarify it more so that we're working towards that. The second workshop is very nuts and bolts. It's called How to Power Start Your Day. And that is my personal, how I start my day, how I clear my head, the questions I ask to clear my head, and then the actual musical warm-ups that I use to get me to touch all the parts. Now, you may already have a warm-up, and then you can just apply that. But if you join now, and if you're already in, make sure that you know about those 2 workshops. Okay, thank you so much. And Marcella, thank you for being here and for your wonderful comments. And I look forward to seeing everyone either in a performance. If you don't play the harp, I look forward to seeing you in a performance or in my show that's coming to New York. I'll tell you more about that another time, to New York City in April. Tell you more later, because right now I just want to make sure everyone knows that the Academy enrollment is open. It's going to close soon, but it's open now. Okay, see you all soon. Bye. And bye, Marcella. Thanks so much for all your comments.